When to launch apps on the App Store and what are some guidelines in doing that? Let's get into it. When you're building a software product, there are all these different choices. Should you be building a web app? Should you be building a mobile app? And if it's mobile, should it be iOS or Android? Should you be including the iPad and other tablets? Should you build a desktop app? And if you build a desktop app, is it a Mac app or a Windows app or both? Or should you build a Chrome extension and a browser extension in general? So this can be a pretty overwhelming decision. In fact, you could miss out on a product market fit that would have otherwise been possible for your product just because you chose the wrong medium for distribution. So, how should you go about this thought process? First of all, you got to figure out where your audience is likely to use the specific functionality that you're building in your product. It's not about where your audience is present. The audience is always present on multiple devices, but it's about where they are more likely to use this specific functionality. If you're building a social media app, obviously you got to build it for the mobile. If you're building a video editing app for high-end professionals, you could get away with a laptop process because most people are willing to spend more time editing their videos at the higher end. And today they're more used to the laptop editing process anyway. After you've determined where your audience is likely to use your product, the next thing to think about is the complexity associated with your product and its usage and where you can make it the most user friendly. For example, a full blown video editing process could be very painful on the phone due to its limited real estate, and it might be a much better experience done on a laptop. Whereas an experience built around scrolling and tapping a few buttons may be much more pleasurable to use on the phone compared to the laptop and trackpad or mouse situation. The next consideration is how much resources do you have at your disposal to build this product? Because building a mobile app is almost always going to take more just because you got to consider both iOS and Android at a minimum, even if you don't consider iPads. And then for each of these platforms, you typically have to take additional care to make sure that you're able to build for different types of aspect ratios and screen sizes and so on and so forth. There is quite a bit more in terms of what you have to pay attention to and build relative to building a web app. Next, there are almost always more red tape and more considerations when building a mobile app because you got to please Apple and Google in order to get your apps on the App Store and Google Play, whereas a web app is not regulated by any entity and you can pretty much own the entire process. We've built mobile apps that have gone to 80 million downloads. We've been featured on both Apple and Google Play. We've also built web apps. This is a very deep topic, so there are more parts coming. This topic is a suggestion from the founders community. I plan on covering more of these, so keep it coming.